Hello and welcome to StudyIQ, my dear friends. I am Prashant Mavani. I hope you all are good. Today is 29th May 2020, and I would like to start today's discussion with this interesting quote. There is no happier person than a truly thankful, content person. I think we feel this sense of satisfaction only when we shift our focus from what we don't have to what we already have. There's a big secret in this thing. Most of the time, if you observe yourself, and I'm not just talking about you, I'm talking about every one of us, right? Most of the time, what happens is that we think about the things that we don't have rather than appreciating the things that we already have. When we appreciate the things or the situation or the moments that we already have, the things that we have already enjoyed, then we will feel more happier. I want you guys to think about it. With this difference, StudyIQ has launched a smart course. This smart course is designed by some of the best faculties of our country. They have designed this thing keeping in mind the necessity and the requirements of Civil Services Examination. To find out more about it, download our mobile application on your phone. Till 31st May, we are offering you this installment option. Make the most out of it. The PDF of today's lecture is already available on my Telegram channel. You can follow me on Facebook. Dear friends, please make sure that you pass this lecture to that student or that particular group of students, those who are searching for this sort of analysis, this sort of explanation of the Hindu newspaper. If you have learned something from today's discussion, don't forget to hit the like button. You can support us by subscribing our YouTube channel. On our table, we have total 5 important articles. The first one is from Times of India. This one is about urban battlegrounds. This one is about coronavirus, COVID-19, our future strategy. Then we have one article on India-Nepal issue. Then I have kept one article between this India-China and India-Nepal issue. So this one is about exports. And then we have 2 articles. These 2 articles are about India-China relationship. And not relationship, but to be more specific, it is about India-China, this border issue. Okay. So the first one, urban battlegrounds. This one is from Times of India, and this article is about this video conference that took place between Rajiv Gauba, who is cabinet secretary of our country, and Mr. Rajiv Gauba had an interaction with municipal commissioners and district magistrates of 13 cities. Now, these 13 cities are quite interesting because these 13 cities account for 70% of COVID-19 cases of our country. So, these DMs and MCs are of those places. You can call them hotspots of coronavirus in our country. I believe our next step as a country is going to be clusters, right? We are going to quarantine those areas. Now we know it very well that if we talk about these 13 cities, not each and every area is affected with this COVID-19, right? Of course, these cities are big. And in this big city, right, you have a few areas where you find most of your cases. The rest of the areas are quite clean. So the best way to do it is to quarantine this whole areas, right? And even, many times what you find is that you have this one area, and in that area you have small pocket that is full of quarantine, or full of COVID-19. So you need to quarantine only this area. So far we have learned many things about coronavirus and lockdowns and so many things, goods and bads, both. So now we have reached a point where rather than keeping our whole country or a whole city under lockdown, it is important that we shift our focus to those small pockets, small clusters, those hotspots. Another matter of concern in front of us is that it took 109 days for our country to reach 1 lakh cases, but it took just 9 more days to add 50,000 cases. This indicates that coronavirus is spreading, might have took place at community level, or this community transmission is active now, maybe. Second thing, that tests, we are conducting more and more tests, so that's a positive thing. And the good thing that we find in this thing is, what you can say, so a thing that is on our side is that fatality rate in our country is just 2.9%. So this is much lower than other countries. India now has the second highest growth rate of positive cases as well. So easing of restrictions have taken place in various different parts of our countries, very different states. For example, in Karnataka, they are thinking about opening theaters. If we talk about Telangana, then apart from shopping malls, all other shops are allowed to open for, they are allowed to open their business or run their transactions or operations. The only problem that we are finding nowadays is with transportation or commutation, like air, train services, bus services, etc. Now, two things that all these 13 cities as well as other parts of our country, they have to follow is, the first is, particularly for these 13 cities, the most important thing is wearing mask. And just wearing mask is not going to be enough. Mask etiquettes are very important. If you are just wearing mask and if you are not following mask etiquettes, then that's not going to help. And the second thing is doing more and more testing, right? This is the key. Wearing masks and testing people. These two things are the most important things. Some of these cities like Delhi, Mumbai, Chennai, Ahmedabad, Pune and Indore are our main growth engines of our economy. And this is a very interesting picture that I found for you guys. So this is something that we want, right? We need to quarantine these areas. And what we have to do is, we can, entry, exit can be controlled. Of course, necessary items, internet, electricity, water supplies, and then food items, everything, these things should be readily available in all these areas. At the same time, you have to support people for, with money or something, because if you are putting one small pocket under severe lockdown or a sort of curfew or quarantine, then you have to provide them maybe money as well. Maybe you have to provide them things for free for let's say for a month or something. Because if you want these people to stay indoors, then you have to support them financially as well as in terms of resources. So this should be on our table. And we have to protect our villages as well, because more and more people have traveled to various different parts of our country, particularly in the countryside. So we have to protect our villages. Moving on to next topic. This one is about India and Nepal relations. Now, dear friends, let me tell you one thing, that if this is your first day watching, if you have just started watching this series, then I would recommend you guys to visit my Telegram channel, download PDFs of last few days and go through those topics that we have discussed. In last few days, you will find that we have discussed this India-Nepal topic in detail. I have explained so many things about India-Nepal. I'm not going to repeat those things because we have so many points to cover, so many new points to cover. So old basic points. If this is your first day, then go through that lecture, right? Find the date and go through that lecture. And after that only, I would recommend you guys to watch this discussion, because so many basic things I have not covered in this particular discussion, because we have just covered it a few days ago. So, Treaty of Sugauli that took place in 1816, clearly borders were defined, and this is not, India has not violated. If you go through the technical things about the Treaty of Sugauli, then Nepal agreed with the border with then British Raj. And it was also agreed in that Treaty of Sugauli that your future generations will also respect this 1816 border. Once again, relations between India and Nepal have taken a turn for the worse, and this is a sad thing. This is about Kalapani. We have located Kalapani early on as well. So for new students, this is the place that we are talking about. This is Uttarakhand and this is Nepal. So on Uttarakhand-Nepal border, you find this point here. This is the bone of contention at present between India and Nepal. This is about Lipu Lake Pass, which has been approved by both India and China. for Kailash Mansarovar Yatra as well as for border trade. Now, KP Sharma Oli, who is the Prime Minister of Nepal, he has very trickily used Nepali nationalism, and he's also pointing or painting India. He's also saying that India is as a sort of hegemon state. India is trying to throw its extra weight on Nepal. India is trying to corner Nepal. That's what the Prime Minister or the political party of Nepal, that's what they are saying. But this is not right, because clearly, if we go through past agreements, then you will find that in this 1816's agreement, clearly things are clearly mentioned, and then for a very long period of time, India and China have used this Lipu Lake for transportation, for trade, and for this pilgrimage. So Nepal has never been, it has never resisted, or it has never said anything about it. But all of a sudden, Nepal has started talking about this thing, is because there are a few political things associated with it. Then if you go through this article, then you will find some points like in 1953, India and China identified a Lipu Lake Pass for pilgrims and border trade. In 1860, from after 62's war, this thing was closed, and it resumed back in 1981. In 1861, means Nepal and China, they had signed this boundary treaty. They used to have this problem, but this was signed. So at that point of time as well, nothing was mentioned about this Lipu Lake or this Kala Pani thing. After 1979, the Indo-Tibetan Border Police has manned this Lipu Lake Pass. After the 1996 Treaty of Mahakali, Kali River is also sometimes mentioned as or referred as Mahakali or Sharda further downstream. So this Pancheshwar multi-purpose hydel project was, basically the starting of this Pancheshwar multi-purpose hydel project, and then in 1997, the issue of this Kali River was first raised by Nepal, and then we had this in 1981. Both these nations, they have this joint technical level boundary committee. We talked about this thing a few days ago, remember? So far things were okay between overall, like in a nutshell, if I can say you, then things were okay between Nepal and India. But all of a sudden, Nepal has started talking about this whole issue. So what is the main reason behind it? How it all started? See, on 2nd November 2019, we issued a new map, a survey of India, right? 8th edition. So here this Kali River was mentioned, and Nepal said that why you are mentioning Kali River here and things like that. So 9th edition was issued by India, and Kali River was not mentioned. Because these two items, the committee clarified 98%. This 1981's committee, it clarified 98% of the issue or the boundary, but Kalapani and Susta, these were the two things that were left. So 9th edition, we removed this name Kali, but then as well Nepal was quite aggressive, and Nepal said that we want to continue this. Means Nepal started pointing fingers towards India and things like that. So why all these things are going on? The root of this whole issue is politics of Nepal. By April 2020, Mr. Oli's domestic political situation was weakening. His government handling this whole COVID-19 pandemic is not that great. Second thing, economically as well, Nepal is not doing that great. Then you have this protection or guarantee, 2 years guarantee that you get. Every Prime Minister enjoys a 2 years guarantee of no confidence motion. So Nepali constitution allows you this thing. So this 2 years ended in February. So far the performance of Oli government has not been that great. So to diversify or to divert attention of people of Nepal, he started talking about this Nepali nationalism. And then within Nepali Communist Party, there was a move to impose one move, one post. One man, one post. So one man, one post means either you enjoy a post of Prime Minister, or you can become NCP co-chairman. You can be only one. You cannot have both. So Mr. Oli, who is the co-chair of NCP, Either he has to keep that post, or he has to give up NCP post, and he has to keep this prime ministership. So problems are going on in Nepal, in like the political life of Nepal. So Mr. Oli has used this whole issue, and China is supporting this, this communist party of Nepal. So Mr. Oli is using this whole thing as, Nepali nationalism. And the problem with Nepali nationalism is that the flip side of this Nepali nationalism is anti-Indianism. And this is something that is not right. And I don't just blame Nepal government or Nepali political parties behind it. India has missed opportunities as well. When negative things were said about India, when various different political parties, they were talking negative things about India. At that point of time, India was just watching things rather than taking an active part, and rather than, every country will try to promote itself as a brand. So I think we have missed that thing. Even though having this roti-beti relationship, we were not that active in changing the narrative, in changing the perception about India. So this is something that we have missed, and that's why we are finding this sort of thing. So anyway, it's not that late, and Mr. Oli is not going to stop his political ideology, and his whole concept is Nepali nationalism. And as I told you, he's trying to divert people's attention from his failure. He's trying to point fingers. He's giving you another topic that will keep you busy, right? Moving on to next item. This one is about export blocks. So this article is about supply chain disruption. Now we know it very well that not just our country, but various different countries around the world, some of them are still under lockdown, some of them are partially working, some of them are back to normal. So supply chain, this whole global supply chain got disrupted because of this COVID-19 led lockdown, and because of this thing, it is quite easy to understand that our exports, India's exports, has collapsed. It has collapsed over by 60%, particularly merchandise exports. Merchandise exports means your goods, the things that you are producing, right? This thing has dropped. So it has had a free fall, or a sort of nosedive. Now the problem is that this latest economic stimulus package that is declared by the government does not cover exporters, or it is not specifically giving that much boost to exporters. Early on as well, exporters were not doing that great. They were facing issues with GST returns, remember? And now the Reserve Bank of India on 22nd May did unveil a few measures, including a special 15,000 crore liquidity facility for EXIM, that is Export-Import Bank of India, and a 6-month extension for importers to complete outward remittances. But this is not going to be a big booster, right? There are so many barriers on trade. Already the world is moving towards, means not just India, but other countries are also talking about being self-reliant in medical fronts, in other important technologies and food supplies. So we are going to see a sort of disruption. So without support, exporters are going to find very difficult to stand on their own feet. So I think they need a proper dedicated package, as well as the hurdles that they face, like GST returns are pending and other things. So this sort of things should be sorted out as soon as possible. Moving on to next one. This one is about India and China. Again, dear friends, the same thing that I told you before starting India-Nepal discussion, right? Download few PDF files. We have talked about this thing a few days ago only. So it's not a sort of out of date topic. This is a very fresh topic. And the problem with India and China on this LAC is that China has so far constructed very good infrastructure on its side. When India is doing this thing, China is saying that you cannot do this thing, and China is basically trying to disrupt India's infrastructure development. In late 50s, the lines kept moving westward. This is how China works. This is a very core or nature of China. And I'm not just saying because India and China are going through this sort of stalemate, because I'm saying this thing because if you go through overall, if you observe the nature of China with other countries, its relationship, its border issues, then you will find that there is, I think, no single country, right? You find China's issues with Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, Nepal, Myanmar, Mongolia, Cambodia, Laos, Japan, South Korea, North Korea. Various different point of time at various different levels, right? China has some sort of issues going on. The strange thing is that Bhutan is one of the smallest nations in the world. China is having a land dispute with this country as well. So, and it keeps on doing this thing for various different reasons. And again, politics is a very important thing here. Things are not going that great in China, so we'll talk about it as well. So back in 2007, China's perception of border in Despang in Ladakh sector in Sikkim and in many other places appeared to change. And 30 years ago, somewhere around 30 to 33 years ago, back in 86, 87, we had this Sumdorong Chu incident. And after 30 years of that incident, we saw this Doklam standoff. But things were sorted out using discussions and talks. We have a very good bilateral military relationship as well. Dialogues and joint training and all these things are quite famous, and they are quite popular both sides. The problem is that when China wants to create disruptions, when China wants to create troubles, at that point of time China will not follow protocols. Like we have these hotlines between both the nations. Now I'm not sure how many of you are aware about hotlines, but hotlines are, it's like two telephones. You have one telephone here, you have another telephone on the other side, and as soon you pick up that receiver, right, ring will start ringing on the other telephone, the other side telephone. So it's a hotline, right? It's a 24/7 sort of connection. So when we find this sort of issues going on, and when we try to reach to China using these hotlines, they will not answer it. Same thing happened back in 2013 as well, when Xi Jinping was here on a visit to India. At that point of time, issues were going on, and the Chinese commander did not pick up the hotline. So this is not how professionals behave. Now, if we talk about the second topic, Beijing's Ladakh brinkmanship, the main reason why we find this thing here, again, just like Nepal, China is also using this whole topic to diversify the attention, right? It is basically a sort of tactic that is used by China, because as far as economic performance is concerned, it has deteriorated. Means Chinese economy is not doing that great. It was not doing great because of this trade war. And now we have this coronavirus blame on China. So there are so many countries, they are holding China responsible for this whole coronavirus thing. And China wants to, means the leadership wants to save its face. And because of this thing, it is creating this, it has increased this adventurism in various different locations. It's not just with India, but you find same thing in South China Sea. Issues with Taiwan has got new fuel. With Hong Kong, they have got new fuel. Then you have issues with in South China Sea. Fresh issues with the Philippines, and USA is also here. USA is going to be a big challenger for China in this part of the world. And then it has started creating issues with, with India as well. And China knows this thing very well, that you cannot push India too much. If you push India too much, then India is going to be with USA. To an extent, India is tilted towards USA, but China knows this thing very well, that if you push this India too much, then USA and India are going to be one team. And if these two countries are part of one team, then this is going to means, then if you compare, if the balance of power will be against China, if these two countries join their hands with each other. So China will try to solve this whole border or LSE issue with India as quickly as possible, because on the other side it is confronting a very strong country, that is USA. So these are the things that are going on. Now we reach to this phase of news items. Working with China to resolve LSC issue peacefully, said Ministry of External Affairs. India and Chinese sides remain engaged through diplomatic and military channels in Delhi and Beijing and at the LAC, that is line of actual control, in order to resolve the situation along the boundaries in Ladakh and Sikkim. Then the second topic is about the first editorial that we have discussed from Times of India. So the news item is Center reviews a situation in 13 regions hit hard by virus. So you have Mumbai, Chennai, Delhi, Ahmedabad, Thane, Pune, Hyderabad, Kolkata, Indore, Jaipur, Jodhpur, Chengalpattu and Thiruvallur. Don't charge migrants bus or train fare, has been said by Supreme Court. The Supreme Court on Thursday forbade the railways and the state governments from extracting train or bus fares from stranded migrant workers waiting to return home amid the national lockdown. Security forces avert car bombing in Pulwama. So this is a big, you can say, achievement. The only sad thing is the militant escaped, but I strongly believe that he will be caught very soon. And India vaccine trials likely in October. A novel coronavirus vaccine being developed in India will likely begin to be tested in people in October, has been said by Principal Scientific Advisor to the government, K. Vijay Raghavan. He has said this thing in a press conference. And that's everything in today's discussion, dear friends. Thank you very much for watching this video. As I told you, that please make sure that you pass this lecture to that student or that group of students who need this analysis, right? I will leave it on you guys to decide. And please don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the like button if you have learned something from today's discussion. And I will see you soon with daily financial news analysis. Till then, enjoy your studies. God bless you all. Jai Hind, dear friends.